from all over.
Okay, well, we're a couple minutes late. Hi, I'm your new Mel Wilkerson for today, since he is moving. Today we have, I'm going to do your short version, Corben Geis.
Yes, that's why I did that.
Pretty much a man of a whole bunch of talents and a very kind heart, and one of the few special people that really enjoy teaching to the handicapable people. He does wheelchair dances, and he has, I think, more fun sometimes watching his videos than his dancers are having, and they're having a blast. And he does magazine articles. I know he does a lot of cartoons. What is that? Spin chain spoofs.
Started that in 1990. Oh my gosh.
Yes. So he does more things than I'd ever be able to list. So here he is, everybody, Corben Geis.
Yeah, and how I got the Corben Geis thing, I gave Corey Benjamin Geishauser is the full name. 25 some years ago, whenever the internet first came up, remember how we all had to take certain codes and names and dates and try to come up with a username and a password? I just took the first syllable of Corey Benjamin Geishauser, Corben Geis, and used it as my internet name. A big mistake, because all of a sudden snail mail started coming to me as Corben. Everybody, and I get phone, who's Corben Geis? And I'm like, I guess I just created a new character. So that's a nom de plume, and it's kind of stuck with me all those years. But first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody here who actually are watching, who even thought about maybe doing this Handicapable club idea. It says that I'm going to talk about getting back into the schools too. I hope I get to that. If not, Mel said that could be an entire other session. But so I want to say thank you, mahalo, danka, spasiba, gracias. Did I get domo? I get to play St. Nicholas a lot, and so I learned to say a few things in different languages, but that's about it. And as far as my German, I just remember the swears and the prayers, so I won't be doing too much of that since I just got out of church. But hey, here's how this Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I'm going to take you back. Fred Rogers once said, "Attitudes are caught rather than taught." Attitudes are caught rather than taught. And he also said, to do something that you love in front of somebody else, especially a child, in Mr. Rogers' case, is one of the most rewarding things, gifts you can ever give. That's how I got into calling. I saw the caller at our club when I was 12 years old, just having the time of his life. Like Mark was saying, I have a blast when I'm calling to the handicapable kids. He was not showboating. This caller was not up there showboating. You could just tell he loved what he was doing. And that's how I got the calling bug. I said, boy, he's really having a good time. I bet I can do that. And I do that when I teach art. I try to do that when I'm doing music. I play a little piano. And if you can do that to anybody, doing something that you love, whatever the hobby, talent, interest, or hobby is, or profession, that pat yourself on the back. That's commendable. The handicapable thing, I'm going to get right to how it really started. I was at a Collar Lab convention it was 2005, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky. And I had already been working with our ARC, the ARC. and they had me in the 1990s doing line dances with them. And what you would do with the line dances, if you had the achy breaky line dance or the Macarena, what you would have to do, because different folks have different levels of severity with their cognition, you'd water it down to make it adaptable to everybody. And my calling coach and big brother, Tom Miller, who only lives, well, he's in Alabama most of the time now, but usually he's about 15 minutes up the road from me. He had a Handicapable club all through the 80s and 90s. And once again, I'm seeing somebody doing something, and I said, that looks great. And at the time, I had a full-time job as an activity director, is what I do in personal care. And I've been doing that for about 27 years now. And I also worked for our Pittsburgh Pirates minor league baseball team. I'm telling you all this for a reason. It's going to make a big circle, hopefully. And I was the mascot. Here I am, a cartoonist, and I got to be a walking, well, I wasn't talking because the mascot didn't talk. I was a mascot, sports mascot for 10 years. And because of that, and a lot of the Special Olympians who I know in town, they already knew me. They kind of, that was my in. This is the, hey, that's this guy who's running around the baseball field. He's the same guy who comes in and does line dancing with us. Well, back again, I'm at a Color Lab convention, 2005, and I'm sitting with Michelle Jacobs. It was Michelle Jacobs then, it's Michelle maybe now. And she's in Albany, New York area. And Charlie Wheatley from Louisville, Kentucky came on. I don't know if any of you were there, with 4 squares of Handicapable square dancers. And there were Down syndrome, there were autistic, and they did a demonstration that knocked my socks off. It was fantastic. I was smiling, I was crying. I said, I'm sold. I got to do this. I got to do this. That's what I got to do. And they made a tape, they made a video of it. And I took it back to our the executive director at the ARC, who I knew, she was new at the ARC, but I taught her kids in art back at their grade school. So she knew me already. And I said, I got to show you this tape. Because I will say to people who are not from our square dance world, and I'll even say it to square dancers, I'll say Handicapable square dancing and question marks pop up. What are you talking about? I popped in the tape. She watched the first minute and a half, not even that long. She says, sold, when do we start? So that's why when Mark was saying about the videos, I have to get written consent from all the people who I video or take pictures, which is pretty much all of them want to do it. And I try to put on as many videos on YouTube as I can. So folks like yourselves, dancers, dance leaders who actually get an idea to try to start one of these fascinating, wonderful clubs, have a visual. And also it's there to help a lot of callers who are interested in doing this. And over the years, when Tom Miller and I have done these sessions, these Handicapable sessions, a lot of times there's not a lot of people who attend these, but I'll hear they'll go back and they'll watch or listen to the tapes and say that sounds fantastic. And just like going into the schools, I hope I have enough time to talk about that. That visual is so important to them to see. Now I sent Mark some video. If there's any time you want to throw any of those pictures up, a lot of times when we're talking, it's like, okay, Tommy, I'll talk to Tom. I'll say, hey, we'll talk for 45 minutes, and then we'll do questions and answers for 15 minutes. The last few times we've done these sessions, it's been the other way around. We talk for 15 minutes, and then there's 45 minutes of questions and answers. And it's fantastic. So the number one question I always get is, how do you get a handy club started? Well, it's easier said than done, I can tell you that. There's just a few things you have to keep in mind. You need a place to dance. you need a caller or some type of dancer or dance leader that knows their way around the square. And you need dancers / angels. I don't know if they're called angel dancers in all the parts of the world, but graduate dancers, experienced dancers who help out. Let me explain Hakuna Matata. If you didn't see the movie The Lion King, you might not have known this Swahili phrase. There's Tommy boy. These are the originals, by the way, in our group. It's called the Hakuna Matatas. It means no worries. It's from The Lion King. And when we were trying to think of a name, I called that Singing Call, which is on Hi-Hat Records. Deborah Carol Jones originally recorded it, and I think Buddy Weaver redid it. I said to these kids, we call them kids, and that is no disrespect, by the way. If you hear me calling them kids, it's not politically correct, but we are all, Tom Miller and myself included, we are all kids. And they were singing this song, like every Disney song. If you have a Disney song in your repertoire, callers, you know it's a sing along anytime. But these folks absolutely love it. And by the end of the singing call, I said, "Hey, I think I know the name of our group," and they all yelled Hakuna Matata. That's how we came up with our name. I have talked to folks who we've sparked some interest. And this is Carl, by the way. A lot of you might know Carl because he celebrated his 60th birthday in December. And I kind of put out word, can we try to get people to send cards to him? Because Carl's health was failing last year, and he's done a bounce back. He's doing much better. The poor guy has cirrhosis of the liver, and he never drank a day in his life. And a lot of these good folks have been dealt a bad hand anyways, and then they have multiple problems on top of that. But Carl ended up collecting, because of good folks like you all around the world, he collected about 235 birthday cards, and he and his family were just overwhelmed. And they said the square dancing is like the most wonderful thing in the world. So I've talked to different places, and they've gone to churches to start with a club, to find a church hall, contacting your local ARC, your local ARC or Skills. Sometimes another kind of a win-win is things right now with COVID are.
I can feel it, but it's not pain. I can feel it, but it's not painful.
And some will go into nursing centers, personal care homes, assisted living communities. And what they do is they do a trade or a swap, if you will, and they get their hall for free. Beautiful hall, activity room, what have you, the cafeteria, and they'll start their group. But the group will do a demonstration maybe once a month for the clients and the residents of that home or that community. They put it on the activity calendar that the Hakuna Matatas are going to dance. I'm just using our name again. And then the activities directors at these personal care places was like, you guys can use our facility anytime you want. So, and then getting the caller sometimes is the biggest dilemma that I've talked to with folks starting these all over the world. I've tried to put out, and I have, if you YouTube my name or YouTube Hakuna Matatas, I have choreography. I have several, we used to call them records back in the day, that are just Handicapable, zoned in just for the Handicapables. There's me and Tom acting like screwballs at a 1950s rock and roll party. So and I'm bouncing all around here because I actually have a list of things to do, but seeing these pictures are bringing back really good memories. They're at a Pennsylvania State Convention there, and the other one, we did a dance just like I saw a dance being performed. This was this picture here is Talk Like a Pirate Day. September 19th is International Talk Like a Pirate Day, and this was from a few years ago. because with COVID, we all had our eye patches over our mouths this year. But so we did this dance in Pittsburgh, and it sparked interest with 3 people. There's our hobo dance, our railroader night in central Pennsylvania. We're really big on our heritage with railroad theme. And there was a club that started up in Pittsburgh, and it was 3 new female callers who were learning how to call, and another a gentleman who was a very good dance leader, and they started a group. Now, sometimes for a newer caller, this is a whole different ball of wax, because the timing for your calls, if you're learning that you do a do-si-do with 8 beats, take that and throw it out the door. Some folks can adjust to this easily. Other people, it takes a little bit of time. For example, and actually one of the things on my list here says what to expect, and then I have expect the unexpected. Well, they don't teach you this stuff in caller school. If you usually do do-si-do in 8 beats, sometimes these folks have canes, walkers, crutches, 2 crutches, sometimes 1 crutch, of course, a wheelchair. So sometimes that do-si-do will be 16 beats. Sometimes you just call a do-si-do and you can get yourself a drink, because they're still doing the do-si-do. The main thing is with square dancing is for them to have fun, of course. These folks, you really want them to have fun. I use singing calls all the time because this wonderful audience of folks love karaoke. If you don't know what karaoke is, it's a great big sing-along. And if you want to score big points with them right away, take whatever type of Disney stuff you have. And if you know your singing calls, there's tons of Disney, and you'll have them right away. But the one big thing as a caller is you have to overcome any fears. And I've actually talked hours on the phone with different callers of doing this, because they said, can you just, Corey, can you please just tell me some stories? Corey with a story. And the stories, I could write a book, could illustrate it too, but I could also write a book on the trials and errors of calling for the Handicapable clubs. Not all the stories are happy stories, because when we have, and you know what, here's another thing. You know how every square dance club is different? Every Handicapable square dance club is extremely different. And I give you an example. When I got to see Charlie Wheatley and his group from Tennessee, all 4 squares of dancers were all Handicapable dancers. That impressed me beyond words. My group, we're within a few months now, will be coming up on 18 years. We still dance with 4 Handicapable dancers and 4 angel dancers. Our angel dancers are the glue that keep them together. Tom and I, with the nights that we call, we have an advanced group afterwards, and some of our advanced dancers, bless them, because they are really angels. They come in and help out and love helping out with our Handicapable. Not all of them. Some of them, it's okay. Some of them are scared. Some of them do not want to, interfere, or it's not their cup of tea. Understandable, totally understandable. I'll go in and when I say I go in, this is all past tense, because of COVID, have not been in any of the nursing centers since the end of Christmas dances in 2019. But when the world was still normal, I would go into nursing centers and nursing homes. And every time I went in and picked up a microphone, it was a new experience. was, I'm going to give you this wild example here because, callers, when they're first starting off in this business, are always worried about, different things. Am I going to be able to sing right? Am I going to be able to find my corner? The nice thing about Handicapable clubs, don't have to worry about calling a corner. Rarely do I ever call an alum and left. We love circles and stars, and we circle in stars until we see circles and stars in our head. Heads, everybody face your partner, do-si-do. Turn and do a U-turn back and smile at your corner, do-si-do. Head boys, do-si-do. Hook onto your partner's arm, and heads do a 2x2 do-si-do. Get them in lines of 4, and then you joke with them saying, all right, can we do a 4x4 do-si-do? I don't know if it can be done. And they do the do-si-do. Stars, have the head star, have the boys star, have star promenades, have all 8 of them going in star, and they shuffle their feet. It's amazing what you can do. At one time, in the 18 years we've been doing this, I was able to do a basic group and a little more advanced group. And if you go to the Handicapable website, which is a little out of date, but still pretty good, it's ushandicapable.org. And I'll make sure I throw it up someplace and toss it around so you go. US Handicapable, HANDICAPABLE.org. There's a basic list, and then there's a advanced list. I had 2 groups. I had the ones that were just doing stars and circles, and then I had the other group doing right and left grands. I had them doing, Tommy and I had them leading to the right, circle into a line. And then what happened over the years was everybody started hearing how much fun this square dancing thing was. And this is the biggest club in our area. I live near Penn State, to geographically tell you where I am, near Penn State University. They will have 6 squares on a good night. And our regular clubs or plus clubs will have 2 squares. And it's funny, I'm telling you these stories, and I'm getting about 10 more stories that are coming up. But these square dancers, Handicapable, if you love square dancing, they really, 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 and this is in all caps and bold print, love square dancing. No politics. You ever hear of a club that didn't have politics? There's no politics. There's no cliques. All they want to do is hug. They love you. Yellow Rock. Some places don't do Yellow Rock. Well, we really don't do Yellow Rocks right now, of course, because of our current situation in the world. But they are the most lovable people. They're just like us. They have good moods and they have bad moods. And man, when they have bad moods, you just better stand clear. If you want to hear some stories, I will make sure you guys are YouTube Caller Lab conventions, and I think I sent a few of those to Mark. If there's if you guys have a group email, listen to me and Tommy Boy. I call him Tommy Boy Miller. Tell you some stories about some of the nights, because you have good nights calling, you have off nights calling. Same with dancing. I've been dancing since the early 80s, and there's been nights I go in there and I dance like Fred Astaire, and there's other nights I go to a dance and I dance like Fred Flintstone. It's like, how do I, and it's the same with these folks. And there'll be nights that they probably shouldn't be dancing. And I encourage the parents to stay. I encourage the caseworkers and the social workers who work with these wonderful people to stay for the dance, because it's important that they do. The theme dances I have done really spark interest in a lot to actually stay and partake in what we're doing. When we first started, it was, and don't be surprised if this ever happens to you, if you start this kind of group, that the parents drop the kids off and all you see is the smoke and exhaust from their car. because man, they're out of there. They have an hour to shop. They have an hour to get groceries. They have an hour to do something. And it felt like at the very beginning, when I started this group, we were babysitters for an hour. But over the years, we've gotten these parents, not all of them, and the caseworkers to dance with us. And they really love it. One of the important things to do, this might be good for any club, especially because of the average age of our dancer. I think somebody told me is like 75 now, but maybe it's a little older. To have emergency cards, dancer bios, and emergency cards. I will make sure you get those. I made up my own dancing cards, and the bios basically just say, hey, Corben Geis, maybe it'll say some of the stuff that I like to do, because it's wonderful when hey, this kid here, he's a bowler. He likes to bowl. He likes to do this. You find out things, makes great conversation. But they're also emergency numbers in case something comes up. And boy, well, let me tell you, we've had stuff come up. That's not to scare anybody. As long as you have support wherever you are, you're in good hands. But it's also good to write down some medical stuff like certain meds that they might be on. The emergency cards are wonderful. Another website that is good, as actually it's golden, and it's Calvin Campbell's. Some of you might know Cal. He's from out in the Colorado area. Is Dancing for Busy People. That's the name of his book, Dancing for Busy People. That has been my Bible since Cal and Bob Howell and Ken Kernan and those guys put this out. And you can find that book, but you can also go to his website. It's Dancing for Busy People. It's D for dancing, 4 as in the number, BP. Dancing for Busy People, D4BP.com. There is a plethora of stuff there for the newer caller, for the experienced caller, for the newer dancer, for the experienced dancer, even stuff that you can do for your fun nights, your open house nights, your beginner party nights. There's stuff there, of course, for the Handicapable, tons of great stuff for the schools. And if you're just having a regular square dance some night and you want to break up the monotony a little bit, Dancing for Busy People, and I'm not getting any kind of money for plugging this book, but it's fantastic. It has circle dances, line dances, mixers. There's square dancers out there that don't even know what mixers are. One guy I was talking to at a convention a few years back, he says, "What's a mixer? Is that when you mix drinks?" And I'm like, "No, that's another kind of mixer. It's mezcolanzas and Sicilian circles and quadrilles and stuff that we all as callers and dance leaders should know." And it breaks up the monotony of a regular dance and puts a lot of fun into the evening. One of the other thing is the wheelchair square dancing. Mark, am I okay on time? Am I all right? Nobody fell asleep yet. Okay. I see thumbs like this and I don't see any other fingers, so that's a good thing. I'm an art major. I loved art. I'm not really known for my calling. I do a lot of singing calls on Silver Sounds and some guest spots here, but I'm known more for my cartoons and my columns that I write for the American Square Dance magazine. Which, by the way, Buddy Weaver is going to be taking over, and it's going to get a brand new facelift, and it's going to be awesome starting in January. The Square Dance magazine is getting a major facelift, and it's going to be wonderful. I talked to Buddy today. It's fantastic. So I'm an art major, right? This is going back 30 years ago. My grandparents got me into square dancing when I was a kid. On my Irish side, we square danced, we did contras, we round danced, we clogged, we had a time of our life. My other side, very German, we were always doing the polka, always doing the waltzes. My grandfather developed Parkinson's disease. And before you know it, we took care of him as long as we could. He had to go into a nursing home. So I went to these nursing homes, and that's how I started the wheelchair square dancing. I got my grandma was maneuvering my grandfather in a wheelchair, and we brought the square dancing to him. And it was a sing-along. It was a reminiscing program. It was a social thing. When I saw this wheelchair square dancing, it was square dancing at its best. I would have activity directors call me, say, this one lady, oh, thanks, Mark, thanks. Here's a little visual. And I can still talk over this, right? Okay. She would get all done up just for the square dance when I would come to call, because she met her husband back during the Great Depression at a 4-H club. So very reminiscing. She never wanted to dance. She wanted to sit on the sidelines, like you can see the folks here, sitting on the sidelines and just watching and cheering them on. But if there ever was an activity more popular than bingo at these homes, it was square dancing, because now all of a sudden I started having grandkids tell me they did not like coming to visit grandma and grandpa because we had to sit there and play bingo. But now all of a sudden there's square dancing. What a wonderful intergenerational program. And some of these kids that were coming in to help doing service hours and community service for their schools were loving it, because of course I'd play the banjo fiddle music that we all know, but I would put on old time rock and roll and Pink Cadillac, and I'd put on a lot of retro club mix dance, and they were just having the time of their life. So the wheelchair square dancing actually, with my grandfather, got me into being a therapeutic recreation and activities. And that's, I've had an activity director job, still doing art, but that's how I got into the Handicapable, was the wheelchair dancing. And callers, when you're doing this, one thing you're going to learn, remember I was telling you about the timing thing, it's all over the place. When you learn your singing calls, you'll learn your music, and you'll know where you're to be in different parts of the music. I'm talking to the callers now. I know there's some dancers watching and some handicapables too. You'll know your music. You'll know when the middle break comes in, because the music will change a little bit, or there'll be a key change at the closer. When you use your different pattern music, you can't really always know where you are during your pattern music. But I use, for my handicapables, I use a lot of good singing calls for my pattern, because I know that music. I know the parts of where it's coming and what to do. I was calling one time for a handicapable group, and remember I said, expect the unexpected. So we're going to do a wheelchair square dance. I'm thinking, here I was in my 20s thinking, oh my gosh, they're all going to be chauffeurs maneuvering the chair. That's how we did it, just like you saw in the video there. But when we got up, it was like somebody up higher and more supreme than ever said, you're going to learn how to call today, Corben. And all of a sudden, one guy got up pushing a wheelchair. And then I saw this younger guy, like in wheelchair basketball, maneuvering his own chair. He was squaring up too. At the same time, a guy in a scooter. They're all going to the same square. I'm sweating bullets. He's going with his scooter to the same square. I'm thinking, okay, before I had all manual, so okay, maybe I can do one with all scooters, and you know what I'm talking about with the scooters, the little wheelchair, but motorized wheelchairs. And I kid you not, this was at a nursing rehabilitation center. One of the nurses, or the orderlies, maneuvered a jerry bed. Do you know what a jerry bed is? It's a bed on wheels, and they're awful for square dancing. if you're maneuvering a jerry bed and I say go left, that jerry bed's going to go right. And if you're pushing it forward and then to stop it, all of a sudden I had a Heinz 57 variety pack going on here. And I said, what in the heck am I going to do? You know what I did? I used music that I knew. Boom, put that music on. And I just had a blast. And this is where you got to pull out some of your craziness and creative choreography. I don't think we danced one square dance call. We might have done circle left, and then maybe single file. But everybody's going at a different beat. And then I would get them squared back up. Of course, I'm up there dabbing my head, sweating. And then I'd say, all the good looking ones go up to the middle and shake it, baby. And woo, then I cranked that music up. They were having a blast. And I see a lot of people who are watching shaking their heads and use that music to your advantage. Okay, all the girls go in and do your best hula dance. Ooh, that's wonderful. Okay, let the guys go in. Now, guys, you go in and show the girls how to hula. Then I'll be, oh my, no, guys, get out of there. Everybody 35 and under go into the middle. I'm using my music. I'm trying to let them have fun. Single file, conga style, flap your wings, birdie style, airplane style. And it happens. It happens. And I wish, I go to color school and they were like, one of the worst things that what happened at a square dance is your record skips. Whoa, you ain't seen nothing yet. At this one place that I was calling, and this should be like a survivor's kit of calling and square dances. We're having a good time. We did this wonderful evening of handicapable square dancing, and the activity director came up to me. He says, do you have to leave? Do you ever get that callers? Do you have to leave? Do you got to go? Can you do an encore? I'm like, whatever you want, There's a puddle underneath me because I was scared to death. And he said, can you come over, listen to this, to our obesity wing? I'm 26 years old. I don't know what the hell's an obesity wing. I think I knew what it is in my head. So they took me over. I took all my equipment down. And this is back in the day with the turntables and the Hiltons and everything weighs 1,000 pounds. And I'm getting over to this next unit. And I get into this room. And there is nobody in this room that is under 350 pounds. They're enormous. They had the biggest smiles on their face. And as soon as they saw me, I swore a lot and cursed to myself saying, what am I getting myself into? I had him sitting in the chair. I put on the Alley Cat music. Remember, da 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 dun 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 da da dun dun. And then what he bum 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 bum. I'm just making this up as I'm going along. I'm doing the hokey pokey with them in their chairs. They're all in their well, they're honest to God, they were on benches. And I have a tear coming down my eye because they're young. And we did the hokey pokey. They did it great. We did the Macarena sitting down. You can do it. Sitting down. Great. The activity director comes to me and said, this is fantastic. I've never seen them so happy. Please get them up. Let's dance. What? We were doing so good. They get these folks up. Oh, I'll never forget this. They all got up. And the activity director says to me, keep it simple. I'm thinking, you think? Biggest guy dancing was about 600 pounds. And I was shaking. So callers, if you're ever nervous, I got you beat. I sweated at least 40 pounds off that day. Never been so nervous in my life. Circle left, join hands and circle left. Within the first 4 beat, the 600-pound guy falls. Boom. I about have a heart attack. They get on this walkie-talkie or whatever. 4 or 5 nurses come in. They help him up. He stands up and gives the football. I'm fine. Everybody breaks down laughing. He had a blast. He came over to me and he said, you keep doing what you're doing. This is fun. Don't worry about me. Don't know why I had to tell you that story, but expect the unexpected. 2 more things, and then I'll open this up for questions. Some folks come to the dance that don't want to dance. What do you do with them? I have some autistic people that come and they yell and they scream and they're a distraction. There's different things. Boy, I wish I had that beer like Haas has. What do? You do different things. I still carry vinyl records with me. One of the reasons I do that is I work with the geriatrics. One of the best things I do with a reminiscing program and activities is I'll take a bunch of old vinyls and pass them around, and the stories that come up, these people come up with, I remember this Beatles record, I remember this Perry Como record, and it's just a wonderful social program. That's what I do. One of the things that I do. So I'll have a lot of my folks who come to the dance that don't want to dance, and I'll have my records all over the place, and I'll give them little jobs. Can you put my records in order for me? Can you? And a lot of them are very OCD, and we'll start putting stuff together. Find me a good song in there, and I'll call it. Find me one, would you? And some can't read. Some will just see the color of it. You know, I had some of those vinyl records were in red, and some were green and blue and white, and they picked something out for me. A lot of times when I say support, make sure there's somebody there that knows them, and will tell me, hey, he's having a bad night. Is there anything we should do? Can you put on that one song? Can you do this? Can you do? And you really just got to be open up and versatile. You think you wore many hats before as a dancer and a caller and an officer? You wear lots with this also. And another thing is, it's not a bad idea. You don't have to do this, but it's not a bad idea. Tommy and I both do this. Tom Miller and I both. CPR and first aid certifications. That if you're a dance leader of any kind or any kind of a leader, that's just a good thing to have anyways. Don't need to do that. I've done the Heimlich a couple times, but I never really did CPR. Tommy has over the years, but we have a really good support staff that is with us all the time, helping out. So, and another thing to do with your dancers, and by the way, when you do the CPR first aid certifications, you should also get, in America, in the United States, I don't know about the other countries, to work with certain groups of children or young adults, you have to have clearances, background checks, get all that out of the way. First of all, do what you got to do, and then just have a good time. I will definitely also make sure that you guys get a list. That's my dog. Of themes. Themes are wonderful. We just had an Oktoberfest. We had a patriotic dance this summer. We had a Christmas in July this summer. We did a lot of dancing outside because of, once again, COVID. St. Patty's, sock hop. When you do a theme, you get into the theme, they really, really get into the theme. And makes your music selection easier. It makes costumes easier. It's just all around a win-win. I was just looking at that's going to come in backwards anyways. Next year, we have a whole bunch of different ideas that I asked them for. They're Disney dance. One of them says D-Day. I'm like, D-Day, it's Disney dance. They wanted that one. They want a luau night. They want a gospel night. Christmas in the Caribbean, Halloween hoedown. So that's just to name a few. I have probably gone over my time of speaking for 45 minutes. If anybody has any kind of questions, I just talked about Handicapables. I didn't even get into the schools yet. Can we take it for some Q&A?
Floor's open.
Corey, do you have a particular place you suggest I find angels?
Oh, good. When we first started, Robin, we had some of our club members from our local square dances come out. And then how I got a few more of them hooked was, we need clothes. We need square dance attire. Can anybody donate some square dance? Boy, oh boy. That was just like opening a floodgate, because I had 6 or 7 clubs that said, hey, the Hakuna Matatas need clothes. And all of a sudden I had people, I said, well, come to our dance. Don't send it to me. Don't drop it off. And people were dropping off big trash bags in front of my house. And I'd walk out to go to work one morning and I'd trip because I'd have petticoats all over the place. Then I said, quit sending me stuff. And word got around, and we had more Western clothes than we knew what to do with. They, meaning the Handicapable groups, love the Western wear. If you know anybody out there who is against Western wear and does, I always wear a Hawaiian shirt. I don't look good in Western clothes at all. Back when I was a kid, I was okay, but now I look awful. They love it. I had people coming in, Robin, that didn't want to dance. They were coming in to drop the clothing off, and I had them. I said, aha, well, I got them. Hey, we need another person over here. Can you take 5 minutes? And then, believe it or not, I got people doing that. And then it got to the point where there were some square dance cruises going on, and a lot of my dancers weren't dancing, they were on a cruise. And I said to our parents of these wonderful, wonderful people, and I said to the caseworkers, and I also called a couple of our local student affair and higher education of several of our local colleges. We need some help. Nobody knew square dancing at all. They came in, it was sink or swim. They just jumped right in. Other times I had a group of people, high school kids that came in. I took them aside 20 minutes, I think it was, maybe 15, before the dance started, and I gave them a crash course in square dancing. And kids are like sponges. These teenagers absorbed probably the first 15 calls I taught them within 5 or 6 minutes. And by the time the Hakuna Matatas came in, they were doing it. So there's a couple different ways to get angels to help out. And a lot of the times a lot of the pictures you see of me have me up at the microphone. That's a night where I have a lot of angels, but there were a lot of times that I had the headset on and I was calling and dancing at the same time. It is a lot easier to put a headset on and call advanced and challenge than it is to put a headset on and call for the Handicapable. You're thinking, wait a minute, that's basic stuff. That should be easy. Oh, remember what I told you about timing? It's a workout. Sometimes I go home going like, oh my gosh. But we only dance an hour. An hour is plenty time to dance. By the way, when you do this, you don't want to do a 2 and 3 hour dance. I don't even know if places still do 3-hour dances, but back in the day we did. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's always, and I'm always putting help wanted posts on my my Facebook.
That answers about the Handicapable clubs. What about in schools? How do you get angels for schools?
Well, that's a whole different ball of wax. When you're going into the schools, Mark, can I talk about the schools, or is that what we want to? But let me answer that question. This is from doing that for as many years as I have with the schools, and what I found out is kindergarten, and I have called kindergarten. That's 5 years old, all the way through college. And me personally, I love the little ones and the college ones. The junior high kids and the high school kids, it's not for me. Tom Miller loves that group. So having Tom, when he's in town, he had a high school program at 3 or 4 schools, worked wonderful. I had the grade school kids and it worked. But let me tell you what I have found out this is just my personal thing. It doesn't happen everywhere. Kindergarten, first and second graders love the angel dancers coming in from the clubs because they dress up and what little kids just love it. One of the kids once told me, I'll never forget. He goes, I got all these extra grandparents coming to dance with me. 5 or 6 years old. He loved it. And they all came in with their petticoats, and the guys had their ties. And they liked it. Seems like anything from 3rd grade and up, meaning high school, I don't use angel dancers. I don't use angel dancers at all. And Tom doesn't either. We just go in and we just start teaching. You just have a group of people that never danced before, and you start them from day one. Tommy has a program, and I'm speaking about Tom, and I don't even know if he's on. If he's on, he would have chimed in and probably given me heck a couple times and told me to slow down and quit talking so much. But he gets them through the mainstream program, because when you go into schools, Robin, some of the teachers want a syllabus. They want an agenda. They want a short-term goal. Back in the day, and I still talk to a lot of the baby boomers, they have nothing but horror stories of dancing in gym class. Not everybody, but a majority have. We had to dance to the old 78s and 33 and the thirds, and they skipped, and it was awful. I can't tell you how many times before I go into the school, I will tell the people, hey, listen, don't put any old records on. Let me teach from the beginning. If somebody tells you, we've been dancing for 2 months now, we got this down. Don't listen to them. Unless it's Marshall Flippo stuff, you're in good hands. If it's Lee Kopman stuff, you're in good hands. But I went into a group when I was in my 20s again. I will never forget it. And the teacher was so proud. And they have been dancing so well, Corey, for 6 weeks. Wait till you see it. And the first thing I get there, they did everything backwards. Couple number 1 was right in front of me, and to their left was couple number 2 instead of to their right, how we know it. So I had to go and what do I do? Do I work the way they've been taught incorrectly? Or do I go in and say, okay, now we got to relearn it? So if you are approached to go into the schools, say, don't do a darn thing. I'm going to do it. Mike Callahan, who is from New York. Mike is a fantastic. He's been calling into schools for 50 years. He has a wonderful program. Can I talk a little more about the schools? Getting back into the schools is going to be a task right now, especially with everybody touching hands and doing stuff like that. But one of the big misconceptions I found out with the schools is some people, when I say people, I mean dancers, callers, cuers, dance leaders, prompters. I mean everybody. They heard in a session, write a letter to the school. If you've never been to that school. When I started in my schools, I was already teaching art, so they knew me already. And when Tom started going into his schools, it was his alma mater, so a lot of people knew him. If you have an in, that's how I would suggest getting into the schools. But if you're doing it cold turkey, like you've never done it before, there's been sessions out there with callers that say, write a letter to the school. Introducing yourself, saying, I'm a caller. I would like to teach the students how to dance the correct way. I'm here to help promote and preserve an American heritage. That's all wonderful. But the thing I found out over all these years, don't just send one letter. Send 5 or 6 letters, not to the same person. Here's where you really hook, line, and sinker the schools. It's usually the gym teacher that's doing it incorrectly. But not, if you remember Stan Burdick, Stan was a wonderful caller. He and Lee Kottman too. Lee was a phys ed teacher. They did it the right way. But what you do is you sell it to the schools as square dancing is not only gym class, it's a music class. It's a math class. Boy, is it ever a math class. Quadrants, and working your different corners to get the cornerback, taking a puzzle apart and then putting it back together. It's a history class. Every time I go in, boy, do I give them a little bit of square dance history. Anything from, did you know the one scene in the 1953 War of the Worlds movie when the aliens attacked? It started at a square dance. What? You're kidding me. No. And if anybody knows good old, rest his soul, Ernie Kinney, who's from the Fresno area, California, back in 1993, Ernie was in a movie called Son-in-Law. It's a hysterical movie with Pauly Shore. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. Ernie's the square dance caller in it. And then I'll say something of the effect about that movie. You get their attention. But when you're selling this square dancing packet, gym, it's a gym class, it's a music class, it's an art class, it's a math class, it's a history class. There's 5 letters that I'm sending. I'm sending a letter to the history teacher, to the music teacher, the art teacher, and blah, 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 whatever I said. Principal will get it. Assistant principal will get it. I've even sent stuff when I've gone in not knowing anybody to the librarian. If you send that many letters, somebody's bound to get that letter and get you in to that school to call. I just went on and on and on. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add on to any of that? That's a huge thing with the schools.
When I was much younger, I was approached by, I live in a small state, the Australian Capital Territory, which is our sort of government area. The schools wanted somebody to teach all of the education, physical education teachers square dancing. And so I was coming the other way. I was starting with all of the school. They were coming as part of their course. It was going to be an increment on their pay, all sorts of things. So that worked out really well. So the strategy was to figure a program that they could take away with them and they would come and learn it. And then they would go away and teach it. And so that worked really well. I had 2 sessions of about 15 teachers in each, 15 to 16 teachers in each session. And so that worked really well.
That's really cool, Alan. He brings up a really good point too. It gave me the idea of when I was talking about the Handicapable support group. When I was talking just a little bit ago about make sure you have the caseworkers there, or make sure my wife is a physician's assistant, and for the early years, she was there. She would always update our first aid kit, but that got me thinking also, if you go into the schools, and I've heard callers tell me horror stories. Remember I was telling you about the horror stories that I heard from the baby boomers saying about how I heard callers say they went into the schools and the teachers said, bye, I'm going to the teacher's lounge. I need a break. Ugh. Don't do it by yourself. You need to have disciplinary figures in there, especially with the way kids are. I know when I learned to dance in school, we were just I was in 5th and 6th grade. I was loving it because I was dancing with all these girls. I was weird. None of the other guys wanted to square dance, and I knew I liked this stuff way back then because, hey, I'm dancing with a girl, But definitely make sure that you are not left alone when and it has happened. It's very important that you have people there. Have a plan. Definitely have a plan.
I got one for you, Corey.
Oh, give it to me.
I was teaching I guess you call it a semester. I'm not sure. I work at the school and I don't even know what they call it. But for one grading period, I was teaching square dancing as an elective, and the biggest problem I had with it, I didn't have a problem with teachers staying there or anything. They stayed and everything, but my biggest problem I had was cooties.
Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I definitely know what you're talking about. So
Answer that one.
way before we had this pandemic, when I would have my, and I had it with my junior high kids, my kids just brought me dinner. Way before the pandemic, I would always take in, and some of you already know this story from hearing it over the years from different colors. I took in a box of rubber gloves. And you put those gloves on, there goes the cooties. The kids love putting those latex or whatever they are, those gloves. They put those, and they, not all the time, Mark, most of the time, they would dance for me. Now, here's the deal. I know you don't want to touch this person, or you don't want to touch that girl, and I'm thinking in my head, you're going to be all over them in a couple of years. But I'm thinking, here, put these gloves on, then you won't get lice and cooties. And they do it. That worked for me. Another thing that worked for me with the junior high, maybe just before junior high, they didn't want to touch the girl's hand. So I'd say, oh, the heck with you. That's where that Dancing for Busy People book comes in handy. I would say, all right, then we're going to have a competition. What do you mean? Boys, you're dancing over here. Girls, you're dancing over here. Give me a square, boys. Give me a square, girls. All right, boys, do your best star. Oh, they'll do everything they can to star better than the girls. Girls, you do a star. Okay, boys, you do a left-hand star. All right. I think the girls did a little bit better. All of a sudden, I made it into a friendly competition. And for some reason, I've done it more than a dozen times, that the boys will pull together and the girls will pull together. The girls will circle left, the girls will star, the girls will do do-si-dos. There's so many calls you can do that you don't have. I'm not talking touch a quarter, scoot back, boys running off. I'm talking the meat and potatoes, the early stuff. A matter of fact, I just put something on YouTube that was me teaching how to do the grand square a few years ago. Maybe I can show it this way. I'm gonna put this up here. Yes, you can grand square like a zombie too. Ready? They all have the rubber gloves on, and it looks like a mess. But I taught them the grand square because they don't have to touch any hands with the grand square. And at first it was a little bit rocky. And then, and now we're dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller. I don't know if you can see, but by this second dance, they had the grand square down a lot better. It actually looks like they're playing rugby, but they were really square dancing. And they had the gloves, they didn't have to touch. They backed up 1, 2, 3, clap and turn on the grand square. They were all trying to be in cadence. So you pull out your no hand stuff, single file, do-si-do, grand square. And here's another thing about the grand square. Some of the kids, and when I say kids, I'm going to go the older ones, especially the colleges. Well, we have several colleges around my area here, Penn State, Pitt's not too far. They like the harder calls. Not all of them will just do Allen and lefts and do-si-dos and swings. I'll say something like this. See, with me, I can play the part of an idiot without a problem at all. It comes natural, actually. And I'll say, oh, there's this one call I want to you'll never be able to do it. It's too hard for you. Wow, 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 wow. Give me. So I'll teach them the grand square. And then I'll say, well, that's pretty good. That's really good. So then I'll do variations. I remember one night I was at the University of Pitt at Johnstown. I caught one call that entire night. It was Grand Square. All we did was Grand Square variations. Not like the old days when we did Grand Parade and Grand Spin. I'm not talking about those. I had everybody do the Grand Square. Of course, you're teaching them, you do the heads part, you do the sides part. Then I had just a square of boys doing the Grand Square. Had a square of girls doing the Grand Square. Did that competition thing again. Then I did one where the boys are the sides and the girls are the heads. So the boys are facing, the girls are facing in. Back in the old days, they called it a Chinese Grand Square. I don't think they call it that anymore. The boys do the heads part and the girls do the sides part. And that takes a long time. They eat the harder stuff up. I remember going in and teaching one night. I got them in ocean waves and I taught them a relay the deucey. They wanted to do some hard stuff. I taught the teacup chain one time. Depends on your group. If you do the first tip, if you're a guest caller anywhere, you know that first tip that you do is the feeler. You're feeling out, or you should be, trying to figure out who you're calling to. And after that first pattern and singing call, you probably know what your evening's going to be like. Even if you put out your best laid plan, sometimes that just goes like that. But it's amazing. Sometimes I will call to a place and I'm thinking this is going to be the longest night in my life. And other times I'll go in and I'll say this is fantastic. This is gonna be wonderful. So I don't even remember what the question was, but I hope I answered it. Oh, it was about the cooties.
Yeah,
I know my European dancers are probably ready to go to bed.
Yeah, I was a builder, and I went up to, my daughter was in grade school, and I knew the principal, and I said to him, I said, I said, I'd like to have a class in here and teach the kids woodworking, a little bit how to use tools and stuff, the fourth graders.
Oh, wow.
Give me the boys. Well, he gave me a class of boys, and I got the stuff. The next week, the girls were walking in and saying, we need a chair. We want to do this too. So I had two classes going, one and then another class afterwards. And they learned how to use the tools and everything, and used they actually learned what the different tools were to begin with. And it was beautiful. They loved it. So it's the same thing as, getting them in there to dance. And I had square dancing in high school. And like you say, with the cooties and stuff. I had one partner who loved to dance, and we were doing the polka and we were doing round dancing and everything else in the gym class.
Oh, wow.
So it was great. But today you don't see much of it around here.
There's a goal out there. It was and they don't have it for square dancing anymore. It was under folk dancing, but at the end of the 90s, I remember it was the Presidential Sports and Fitness Award. You could probably Google it, but they actually had it in square dancing. And I know this because I had a couple of my plus dancers and DBD dancers do the challenge of square dancing so many nights in a week, for all the different events. They're mostly sports, but dancing was in there, and they had square and folk dancing. And I remember some of our dancers doing it and receiving a bunch of stuff. They got plaques and certificates and gym bags, and they got a bunch of stuff, and it's something signed by the president. So it was an incentive. And I remember having that tool at the end of the 1990s saying, we're going to also, besides teaching math and all these different subjects with square dancing, we're going to see if you guys can learn how many calls are there now in the mainstream, 53, 50 or something. We're going to learn the first 50 calls in 4 weeks. These are kids. They can do it. They can 10, 12, 15 calls in one night, no problem. So there was an incentive, and I don't think they have it on square dancing anymore, and it's too bad because it was a wonderful incentive program to get kids, even the cootie kids, to partake in this. But I do remember going in after school, and that was a challenge for me to get into school about 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock to do that. But anybody else have any other stories? I told a couple horror stories. Do you go ahead? Yes, sir. JV.
Corey, I did a bit of square dancing in a school in northern New South Wales in Australia. And I had a teacher's aide that came and organised it. And it was an alternative to sport. It was an elective. They could choose it instead of going to cricket or basketball or whatever they did. And I ended up with 33 girls and 1 boy. And I did that for 18 months. And I taught the full mainstream program in 18 months. And it was shortly after we completed the mainstream program that the teachers union jumped up and down because I wasn't a qualified teacher. In Australia, you have to be a qualified teacher to teach at a school. And so that was the end of it. But I did teach the full mainstream program. And the only problem was the teachers union not wanting me to teach because I wasn't a qualified teacher.
Wow.
Yeah,
You know what? Somewhere along the line, I heard a similar story, and that really stinks. I can't even remember where I heard that story. But I remember they asked me for my credentials at one place. I was an art teacher, so that was kind of okay. But I remember them asking for credentials, and I think it was a buddy of mine who was going in, and I said, do you have anything? Sometimes they take anything that has your name on it that's approved. They're like, what do you have? Any certificate? He goes, well, yeah, I have my certificate from when I graduated square dancing, and I have my certificate when I graduated from collar school. I said, send it, see what happens. He might have just lucked out, but they saw 2 certificates that had square dancing or collar lab approved or whatever. I remember those old. Did everybody get one of those when you graduated? He used those 2 things, 2 documents, I guess, and got in. But I have unfortunately heard those stories. They JV, they won't hire you as an independent contractor either to come in, or is it?
No, I don't know what would have worked, but I just gave it away. It just wasn't worth fighting them.
Wow. And I know sometimes when you say stuff like, I'm not charging for this, I have no fee, they're like, oh, come on in, come on in, come on in, you know. And other times with the public schools, I know Tom, I say Tom Miller again. Tom is a full-time caller, traveling caller, as you all know. That's his livelihood. So he better get a paycheck. And he did. He got a pretty good paycheck. I am a caller I'm a hobbyist. As much as it's in my life, I still have a 9-to-5 job and then other jobs too. But if I get paid, that's great. But usually, going back to the Handicapable group, I've been doing it for 18 years and I never charged 1 dime, never charged 1 penny. We just did a big demo dance and one of our local clubs came up and gave me $100 for coming in to call, because I was calling for the Handicapable and for their club. And I said, I don't want this money. And I actually took that money and I said, it's going towards a pizza party for our group. I don't know why I'm telling you that, But it's just one of those things in square dancing. We do it for the love of our activity. And I can tell you this right now, I have buddies of mine who are in bands, rock bands and stuff like that. And they would joke with me. They say, "Oh, we recorded," and then I'd show them an old vinyl record that when I first started calling, I called on Chicago country, and I'd say, "Well, here I am. That's not you." And I put and they were, "How much money do you get? How much royalties do you get?" I'm like, "Actually, we don't make any money with our records. Some guys do. I don't know how they do it, but." And I still get heck from people saying, "You putting your voice down on a recording and they're selling it and you're not making any money? What kind of racket is that?" And the only reason why, well, I do it because I love doing it. And I get asked, "Why do you record and not make any money? Who's your agent? They're awful." And I'm thinking, I'm my own agent. Most of us do it as a business card. Most of us record as a big business card, so we're still alive and breathing, and we're still making records, as Jimmy Buffett would say. I'm still making records, just to know that we're out there. And fortunately, I have a producer, Jack O'Leary. Some of you know Jack. He's fantastic, and he's always up to ideas. And I said, "Jack, I want to record a record for Handicapable." So he goes, "Absolutely. I want to do one for first night of beginner program." Okay, let's do it. And the thing is, you have that record now, or you have that MP3. You got the vocals if you want to do it. But most of the guys and girls who are calling buy it for the music and not to hear me sing on off key. But there are those tools for, I even did one for, it was great. It was a remake of on Cardinal Records. It was TV Theme Time, and starts off with Green Acres. It's a great patter record. But I said, this would be a wonderful. It's the first time I ever did this. It was a singing call / patter. And it starts off, it's Green Acres, and I'm like, "Everybody sing Green Acres." And then a bunch of instrumentals come on, and I'll be like playing Name That Tune with the people. You talk about a crowd pleaser, man. I've done this with all, even with the younger kids. I'm like, "Who has me TV, Nick at Night and TV Land?" Yeah. And then all of a sudden they want to dance. They're having fun dancing to everything. Is it past everybody's bedtime, or some people are just getting up?
Yeah, Corey, I never charged the school, but at the same time, from about 87 to 97, I was actually calling about 9 to 11 times a week. And that was a full-time job. And I was actually making more money teaching square dancing than I was when I was a policeman prior to that.
Wow. Wow. And that is just amazing, because I'm going back to about 95, 96, 97. Of those 3 years, I developed a wheelchair square dancing program that I was doing what you were doing. And I worked it out that I was calling 3 times a day sometimes. I've never, ever had that happen. And the activities director and I would work it out that I'd go and I'd call at 10 or 10:30 at one club in the morning. I would call 2 o'clock, which is a really good time to do any type of entertainment in any type of nursing home. And then for some of the places, I would actually go in at 7 o'clock in the evening after dinner and do a dance. And then doing that for as long as I did, my voice was going like that. And then there were some times that I had recorded stuff, and I'll be telling you the truth, I Milli Vanilli'd it, if you know what I mean. I lip synced myself because my voice was starting to really go. But it is crazy because there is a calling for square dancing. And one of the things I've always enjoyed doing, going back to the beginning of this when Mark said about how much fun I have, I just try to look at these different audiences and say, fun badges and fun dangles are one of my favorite things to do. I for a while there, I was calling at our local YMCA to the water aerobics group. They had me come in 4 times a year, I think it was, and I go in and I call square dances to the people in the swimming pool. Almost everybody that I know in the square dance world at some time in their life has tried square dancing in the swimming pool. Make sure it's
Yeah.
a shallow end. But it's so much fun. You're circling left, and all of a sudden the guy says circle right, and you're fighting the waves. And here's a water aerobics group. And I called to another group. I don't get to call much to them. I wish I would. I have more time in my schedule to do it, but they're an equestrian club. And if you Google or search square dancing on horseback, you will see 8 people on top of 8 horses, and they're square dancing. I'm talking like the tractor square dancing, which I know you all have seen before, I'm sure. But this equestrian thing, they're dancing on horseback. So I said, once again, I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool. I work with a group of autistic kids that do therapeutic horseback riding. I got a video out there someplace. I'll have to send it to Mark. But each horse, you got to visualize this now, has a child on top, an autistic kid. And in front of the horse is somebody pulling the horse to help the kid. And on both sides of the horse is a spotter. So I got a horse and a kid, somebody in front, and 2 spotters. I got 5 people acting as one. I went in and tried to teach square dancing to them. I take it as a challenge. It was interesting because they said my very first night there, we got 3 horses. When you're a square dance caller, you're thinking, I can do 2, I can do 4, I can do 8, I can do 12.
Yep.
3, you can't do that much with them. But boy, were we having fun. We were dancing the funky cowboy, doing pass-throughs and U-turn backs, and they absolutely loved it. I got a phone call one time. They said, hey, can you call for the blind and the deaf? And I'm thinking of most of the people I call in square dance world anyways are blind and deaf. And they said, no, this is a real, and I did. I never did it before. They don't teach it at color school. I took it as a challenge. When I was growing up, we had a lady in our club that was deaf, and her husband would mouth the calls, and she was wonderful. And I have danced in my life with many people who have been visually impaired or visually challenged. So I went and we had a blast. You never know.
When I was in Queensland, we had a state convention in Warwick. It's a town sort of in the southern end of Queensland. And we had the state convention at the showgrounds. And so we had tractors dancing, we had horses dancing, and to top it off, we had helicopters. The Oakey Air Base is only sort of 2 hours away, and they sent up 8 helicopters to square dance at our state convention.
What?
In helicopters.
My
Yep.
God.
That's a good one.
Wow. That just gave me an idea for a cartoon. Everybody duck.
Yeah.
My wife's involved in
Walking duck.
my wife's involved in deaf education, and one of our younger callers, we thought, like, what could we do with a deaf group? And so you have an interpreter in every corner of the room and a caller. And because they're not listening to the caller, they're watching, and from anywhere in their square, they can see an interpreter. And so, yeah, it can work.
And they love it, of course, when I pump up the bass because of the vibration. And I just remember having I was at it was a camp, and I remember the kids coming up and just smiling, and they were just feeling the music, and they just love it. You just pumped up that bass, and
yeah. We had 12.
If you're good on your toes, if you're spontaneous, you can call to pretty much any group you want to. If you're a person who is very list oriented and very scheduled, that's good too. But if a lot of times when you're calling for the schools and calling for the handicapables, you will get 3 or 4, maybe dozen wrenches thrown in your gears in a night. So I love hearing these stories.
You put the bass, get a really big bass speaker and turn it face down on the floor.
Isn't that wonderful? Good
And,
job.
and they feel the beat through their feet.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's
And
just amazing.
that's one of the things with the square dance. And they used to say, if you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can square dance. Well, my big thing is you don't even have to be able to walk to square dance.
When I first started calling, I hired a school hall and we advertised by walking the suburbs and putting pamphlets out. And part of that process, I got bitten on the bottom by one of the big dogs while we were delivering pamphlets. But on the first night, we had 8 people turn up, one which was blind. And that was a challenge, teaching a square with a blind person in it. Everything was great while it was square, but as soon as you went to weave, it was difficult. It was difficult.
And let me add on to that. With my Handicapable group, remember I was saying sometimes they can dance by themselves, sometimes they need a lot of helpers. With my group, we at one time we were able to do 2 groups, a basic and a little, and our advanced program. If you look at the Handicapable list, the advanced would be, the basic would be like the first 15 calls, and then the advanced would be the next 15 calls. It's not advanced like we think of, slip, slide, and slither and all that.
Yep.
Hey, Corey,
Yes.
my wife just let me know that it's time for me to go. So I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to leave the meeting open. You guys can talk as long as you want, but I've got to go get ready to go to a dance.
Oh, wow. That's right. It's early in your
Bye,
time.
Mark.
Okay, so you guys have fun. Thank you again, Corey, for coming. I enjoyed it a whole bunch.
Thanks, Corey.
Sure. You can give me the cane and pull me off.
I leave the room open. Sometimes these guys stay in here, with Mel and them. They stay in here till 11 o'clock at night, my time.
Thanks,
I've
Corey.
heard of
I've
them
gotta
being
run.
in. I've heard of them being in here for 7-8 hours after the meeting was over.
Oh,
Yeah.
diehards.
So yeah, I'm just gonna stop the recording and just leave the meeting open, and you guys can go on as long as you want. I've got to get going.
Do you have a group, an email group that I can send stuff to? That are all these good folks?
I do, but I can't give it out
Gotcha.
because I
Okay.
didn't get. It's not mine. I was given just because I'm taking over for Mel this week because he's moving. He gave me
Okay.
his list, so I wouldn't feel comfortable giving that out.
Understood.
But
Very
if
good. Well,
you
thanks.
send it to me, I will try and send it out to them.
Okay, I can do that because I got lots of info.
Okay.
Well,
right.
Well,
I'll take
thank
any
you,
other
Mark.
questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep. You guys have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you
Bye,
for
Mark.
having this meeting for us, Mark. Appreciate it.
Have fun.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Corey.
Uh,
Bye-bye.